Melanie here from International TEFL Academy in Costa Rica. Thanks for tuning in to our grammar presentations. Those of you that are already teaching English, we hope this is a good opportunity for you to refresh the content that you need to teach so you can be more confident in the classroom. And those of you that are thinking about teaching English abroad, we hope this is the first step in embarking in that journey. Let's get started.
Today we are going to review the past perfect. For example, before I taught, I had graduated. Had graduated is an example of the past perfect. You will see there is another clause in this sentence that uses the past simple. If we were to put this sentence on a timeline, we would see that the event that happened first was that I had graduated. Chronologically, this is what happened first. Then I taught. So the past perfect refers to an action before another, both in the past. The past of the past, if you will. Again, the event that happened first chronologically, regardless of the location in the sentence, should be using the past perfect. The event that happened second chronologically will use the past simple. To form the past perfect, we will always use the auxiliary had. This will be followed by a past participle. For example, I had seen this movie before. Again, using the past perfect implies that it happened before another past event. Also, as native speakers, we will often make the subject and the auxiliary had a contraction. So we would probably say, I'd seen this movie before. An example of the third person singular, he had stayed with us many times. Just a reminder, this implies that it happened before another event also in the past. And we can make the contraction he'd. The third person plural, they had studied this material already. This implies that it happened before another action also in the past, and we can make the contraction they'd. We've talked about past participles before, but let's review. Remember, our verbs come in three forms: the present, or the infinitive, the past simple, and the past participle. So when our students are learning the three conjugations of the verb, they will often memorize them in this order. For example, the verb write is in the present tense, but in the past I wrote. And the past participle, that third conjugation of the verb, is the form of the verb that cannot stand alone, so it will be with an auxiliary verb. So I had written, which we will use in the past participle. Another example, listen is in the present indicative. Yesterday I listened with that ed ending, and I had listened. So the past participle and the past simple here end in that ed conjugation, which makes listen a regular verb. Let's look at another regular verb. Cook is the present indicative. Yesterday I cooked with the ed ending, and I had cooked in my past participle. Drink, on the other hand, is an example of an irregular verb. Yesterday I drank, and I had drunk. So the past participle has the U. So drink is another example of an irregular verb. Let's look at one more example. Cut is the present tense. Yesterday I cut, and I had cut. So actually all three forms of the verb of cut look the same, which make it an irregular verb. Remember, only regular verbs have that ed ending in both the past simple and the past participle. We can use the past perfect in the positive, the negative, and the question forms. So let's look at an example of each. After I had lived in California, I moved to Costa Rica. This is an example of the positive form of the past perfect. I had lived. Before I lived in Costa Rica, I hadn't eaten passion fruit. This is an example of the negative. You can see I used the hadn't as my auxiliary before my past participle eaten. And to ask a question, you will start the phrase with the auxiliary had, followed by the subject, and then the past participle. For example, before you came to Costa Rica, had you tasted tropical fruit?
10. I had worked at Concasa.
Before last month, I had learned all the vocab.
Before January, I had played guitar.
Before I studied English, I had learned Portuguese.
Before last weekend, I had finished all the chicken.
Okay, ready to review? Let's look at what the past perfect is by looking at some examples. For instance, we had been engaged for 8 months before we got married. We use the past perfect with the first clause here, had been engaged, because this is what happened first chronologically. And then we got married. So we use the past simple with that clause. Remember, we use the past perfect to talk about one completed action before another completed action, both in the past. Another example, after we'd moved to the mountains, we bought another car. The action that happened first is that we moved to the mountains, so we're going to use the past perfect. We had moved and we made the contraction we'd, and we're going to follow that by the past simple bought another car, because that's what happened second chronologically. And remember, to form the past perfect, we use the auxiliary had and follow it by a past participle. And remember, a past participle is that form of the verb that cannot stand alone.